Hi, K-pop lovers. Hey Monsties, welcome back to Ahyeon's story. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because we cover everything BABYMONSTER that the international fandom needs to know. And if you've been here, you already know, we don't do surface level content. Today we're going deep, like really deep, because what just happened in Seoul over 3 consecutive nights at the CHOOM World Tour is something that the fandom is not going to stop talking about for a very long time. And at the center of all of it, one name, one member, the youngest one in the room, Chiquita. So drop a comment right now. Were you at any of the 3 Seoul nights? Or were you watching the fan cams blow up from home like the rest of us? Let us know. And don't forget to like this video because we're about to get into it. Let's set the scene first, because context matters here. From June 26th to June 28th, 2026, BABYMONSTER held 3 sold-out nights at Jamsil Indoor Stadium in Seoul, the opening leg of their second world tour, officially titled CHOOM. This is not a small deal. The CHOOM World Tour spans 5 continents, 18 cities, and at least 29 confirmed shows, making it the biggest production BABYMONSTER has ever attempted. And Seoul was the launch pad. 3 nights, 1 stage. And every single night, the internet had the same conversation. Not just about BABYMONSTER as a group, but specifically about their Maknae, the 17-year-old from Nakhon Ratchasima, Thailand. The girl who joined YG Entertainment at 13, debuted after barely a year of training, and has spent every day since proving that she belongs exactly where she is. Chiquita. Now, before we get into what she did across those 3 nights, let's talk about who she was walking into this tour as. Because you have to understand the weight of the moment to understand why what she pulled off matters so much. Chiquita is BABYMONSTER's Maknae, the youngest member, and for a long time, that label carried a certain expectation. The cute one, the youngest one, the one who's still developing. And sure, Monsties have always known she was more than that. But the general public? International casual listeners? The people who weren't already deep in the fandom? They were still figuring it out. The CHOOM World Tour Seoul was the moment that figured it out for them. Day 1. June 26th. The show opens and BABYMONSTER comes out blazing. We go up, into CHOOM, into batter up, into drip, barely pausing for breath. Handheld mics. Unguarded vocals. No safety net. And they hold up completely. But the moment that stops the internet cold comes during the solo cover segment. Each member steps up and takes on a well-known song. And here's what makes this segment different from anything we'd seen from BABYMONSTER before. They don't play it safe. They don't do note-for-note reproductions. Every member bends the song into her own shape, into her own identity. Asa gives bars, tempo, a Japanese inflection. Pharita brings breezy charm to Nicki Minaj's super bass. Ruka tears through Skrillex and Missy Elliott's Ratata with a rap delivery that sounds like it came straight from the YG Senior playbook. Ahyeon closes the segment with Ariana Grande's Problem. And then there's Chiquita. She walks out and performs Fifth Harmony's Worth It. And the fan cams go absolutely feral. Korea Times, not a fan site, a national newspaper, describes her as, and I'm quoting directly, a one-woman show in her own right. That phrase alone tells you everything. Because in a segment where every single member showed up and delivered, Chiquita still managed to be the one people couldn't stop rewinding. The stage presence, the maturity in the performance, the way she controlled the energy of an entire arena as a 17-year-old. Fancams flood TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. Reactions start pouring in from people who had never paid close attention to her before. I don't know what she did with her voice, but hold on. She's a performer. What a performer she is. That's not fan commentary. That's the reaction of people seeing Chiquita for the first time and immediately understanding what Monsties have been saying for years. Day 2. June 27th. And here's the thing about Day 2. If you thought Day 1 was just a one-off peak moment, Day 2 made it very clear that this wasn't luck. This was Chiquita. The Worth It solo stage happens again, and again it takes over the fan cam conversation. The hashtag BABYMONSTR_CHOOM_Seoul_D2 is full of one thing. One name. And then there's the Cheon energy. Chiquita and Ahyeon. Two members whose dynamic the fandom has been obsessing over since before the tour even started, delivering moments on that day 2 stage that have Monsties completely unwell. That kind of consistency, where night after night the performance doesn't drop, the energy doesn't fade. That's not something you fake. That's something you build over years of training, of caring, of showing up every single day, with everything you have. Day 3. June 28th. The last night of the Seoul run. And on day 3, Chiquita takes the microphone at the closing of the show and says something that hits different when you've watched what she's been doing across all 3 nights. She says, and I want you to hear this, I was really touched during Really Like You. The light sticks were so pretty, and everyone sang very loudly that I was touched. Thank you very much. That's it. That's the whole statement. No grand speech. No rehearsed performance of gratitude. Just a 17-year-old girl who just completed 3 consecutive sold-out nights as one of the main talking points of her group's biggest world tour to date. And what she notices is the light sticks. What she's touched by is how loudly the crowd sang. That's the kind of person Chiquita is. The stage power and the genuine softness existing in the same body. And Korea Times wraps up their 3-night review by noting that the solo cover segment was where the night peaked across every single show. Not the group numbers. Not the crowd favorite anthems. The solos. And Chiquita's Worth It was the one people kept coming back to. Now, let's zoom out for a second, because there's something bigger happening here that goes beyond just one great performance. When BABYMONSTER launched this world tour, they were walking into it as a group that already had a solid fan base, strong album sales. CHOOM sold 387,871 copies in a single day, breaking their own previous record, and critical recognition for their live performances. But they were also walking into a moment where the world was watching to see if they could sustain this at a larger scale. 5 continents, 29 shows, first ever visits to Oceania, first solo dome concerts at Kyocera Dome Osaka. This is BABYMONSTER operating at a level they've never operated at before. And in that context, what Chiquita did across these 3 nights matters beyond just the fan cams and the viral reaction videos. It matters because it signals something about where BABYMONSTER is heading. When your youngest member, your Maknae, can carry a solo stage at a sold-out world tour and be described by a national newspaper as a one-woman show, it tells you that this group doesn't have a weak link. It tells you that the depth of talent goes all the way down to the youngest person on that stage. And for a group that's about to spend the next year plus touring 5 continents, that depth is everything. Think about it from the perspective of someone in Manila, or Jakarta, or Auckland, or Melbourne, or Sydney, cities that are still coming up on this tour's schedule. They're going to be watching the Seoul fan cams. They're going to be watching Chiquita's Worth It stage over and over. And when they finally get to that show in their city, they're going to walk in with a completely different understanding of who this group is. That's what Seoul did. That's what 3 nights at Jamsil Indoor Stadium accomplished. It didn't just launch a world tour. It changed the conversation about every member who stands on that stage. And for Chiquita specifically, it didn't just raise the bar. It completely reset it. Before we wrap up, there's one more thing worth talking about, because this video wouldn't be complete without it. There's been a long-running conversation in the BABYMONSTER fandom and beyond about Chiquita and the Lisa comparisons. The stage aura, the way she carries herself, the Thai idol to YG pipeline. And after these 3 Seoul nights, that conversation got even louder. Vietnamese media called her a precious gem that YG found in Thailand. Fans on X were pointing to her eye contact, her half-smile during the choreography, the way she handles the performance from start to finish, and drawing direct comparisons to the way Lisa used to command a stage. Now, we're not here to reduce Chiquita to anyone else's shadow. She isn't Lisa. She's Chiquita. And what these 3 nights proved is that Chiquita is building her own legacy, her own chapter. One that doesn't need to be explained through anyone else's name. At 17, she just completed 3 back-to-back nights at what Korea Times called a show where the audience came specifically to hear BABYMONSTER's vocals with nothing to hide behind. And she delivered. Every single night. Without the safety net. That's not the trajectory of someone finding her footing. That's the trajectory of someone who already knows exactly who she is on a stage, and is just now letting the rest of the world catch up. Monsties, that's a wrap on today's video. If Chiquita's 3 nights in Seoul left you completely speechless, drop a comment below and tell us which moment hit you the hardest. Was it the worth it solo stage? The Cheon moments on day 2? That raw, genuine closing speech on day 3? Tell us everything. And if you haven't already liked this video, share it with a fellow Monsties who needs to see this breakdown, and subscribe to Ahyeon's story, because we are not slowing down. The CHOOM World Tour has just begun, and we will be here covering every single moment as it happens. We'll see you in the next one. Ahyeon.